Hello everyone and welcome to the Rift. Today I've got something a bit different. I've got real cards and I'm going to be doing a deck profile. Something new on the channel, so tell me what you think. Alright, starting off, of course, we've got our legend, Ahri. This is an alternate art I made. Thank you, Jerium L. I think that's how you say it for this art. Really nice. For our chosen champ, we're going to be using blue Ahri. I just think the green, it doesn't really do anything in this meta. It's 5 in a power for 4 might, and that's it. Yeah, it's just not great. You're basically only playing it when you're already winning, so I don't really think you need that card, except in a few matchups. I'm playing it on the sideboard, because it does help you go a bit faster, win a bit faster in some matchups where that's important, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't really think it's that great. And you should probably just be playing this instead. All right, battlefields. I've got Dreaming Tree, Hallowed Tomb, Fortified Position. Dreaming Tree, Hallowed Tomb are good blind picks. They're also good for when you're going second. When your opponent has the choice, you're probably going to be going second. So yeah, Dreaming Tree, you really get some good value out of. Your opponent might or might not, depending on matchup. So it is what it is. If they do, you just kind of have to accept that they're also going to get stuff, and it's kind of just a neutral field at that point. Hallowed Tomb doesn't really do anything, but sometimes you can get back blue Ahri, which is kind of nice because you play her early game, then play her again later. But yeah, it doesn't really come up that much. Fortified Position, this is for going first. I don't know why you'd ever give your opponent this when they're going first. Just don't do that. This card's really good. You want this effect. You don't want your opponent to have it. All right, next I've got the guys, the dudes, the meat and potatoes of the deck, the units. 3 Clockwork Keeper. This guy's pretty good. I mean, he's just 2-drop that doesn't really do anything in the early game, but late game he can draw cards sometimes, which is nice. Yeah, just solid in the early game. Doesn't really do anything, but it's a 2-drop, so you gotta play those. Next, we've got 3 Ravenbloom Student. This card's pretty good. It's kind of just a stat stick. Doesn't really do anything else. Helps attack, helps defend, just decent body, nice stats. Combos with a bunch of the spells you're playing, so just pretty good. And I've got 2 Stalwart Poro because I want to play 8 2-drops. I really want to hit my 2-drop on turn 1 going first, and 8 is a nice way to do that. All right, for some units that are post turn 1 plays, except going second, play this guy turn 1. 3 Sunlit Guardian, just pretty decent card. It is really good on defense. Wielder of Water is slightly better on offense, so he attacks for 4 might. This guy only attacks for 3 might, so if you're having trouble pushing fields and conquering early game, maybe consider playing that guy instead. But I think overall this guy is just slightly better, but we'll see. Really depends on the format, I'd say. Next card is Sprite Mother. Playing 3 that because this card's pretty good. 4 energy for 6 might effectively, 3 of which can attack immediately. Yeah, it's basically just 4-drop 3 might, deal 3 and get a point. That's pretty good. I think I definitely want to play that. So yeah, this card seems really good. Had some good success with it. I think it's a really nice mid-range card overall. It's a good stat stick. Accelerating in this game is always really nice. If you can take points quick, that's really good. The accelerate's probably one of the best keywords we have right now. 3 of Blitzcrank. This card is kind of nuts, I think. I don't know why anyone would rate this card poorly. He's very strong. 5 energy for 5 might with tank is meh, whatever, but he's a removal spell on top of that. So effectively, he's getting you a lot more might on board than that. If you kill something with 5 might, because you can pull it in and it'll get -1 from your legend, so he'll live and the other unit will die. That's a 10 might swing on board for 5 energy, which I don't know about you, but I think that sounds pretty good to me. Yeah, this card's really good. Another comparison would be Charm, but this guy also provides 4 energy for a 5 might body with tank on top of the Charm, which seems really good. Next, I've got 3 Rex, Riptide Rex. This card's pretty decent. again, just a big stat stick kind of really large might swing on board potentially. He's 6 and he kills something that is potentially 6, which is like net 12 might on the board or 6 energy. That seems pretty good to me. He's a little bit expensive being 2 power, but I don't think it really matters that much. Deck's not too power hungry, especially in the early game. And you can usually afford to pay this. Next, I've got our top end 2 Watcher. I think 2 is fine. I'm sideboarding the 3rd one. I think paying 8 and 2 for the Accelerate is a little pricey. You're probably only going to do that once a game, unless the game's going like super long. But yeah, 7 might accelerated is really nice and gives every unit -3 this turn, which is quite good. Yeah, beats over really big stuff, which this deck can sometimes struggle to do without this card, but having this card makes that pretty easy to do. And as I said, I think Accelerate is like one of the best, if not the best keywords in the game. Just getting points immediately is so strong. You can easily finish games just with this guy. You just either hold or take the other field with some chump, and then this guy swings in and just wins. Sometimes even in simplified game states, when your opponent has like no cards, you can just win with this guy alone. You just conquer and then he holds because your opponent can't kill him. 7 might's a little awkward to try and deal with when your opponent's slow on cards, so that can sometimes just happen. All right, on to the spells. We've got some green staples, which I think are just good. A little self-explanatory. Discipline is like one of the best green cards in the game. It's very strong. 2 energy plus 2 reaction is already pretty good, but also replaces itself. That's good. Yeah, this is probably one of the best combat tricks in the game. It might be the best. I'm not sure about that, but it's definitely up there. Very strong card. Next, I've got 3 on guard. You could probably cut this down to 2 and replace it with something, but I just think this synergizes really nicely. I really like it for Raven Bloom and the battlefield we're playing that draws, and it's overall just a solid card into pretty much every matchup. So yeah, you can consider like cutting one and playing like a couple Zanya's main deck if you're having trouble with Kaisa, which is a potential include for this meta because Kaisa seems to be pretty prevalent and pretty good. But yeah, just 3 on guard for now. I think it's generic and good into like every matchup, so it seems good to me. Charm. This card is nuts. I don't know what the devs were smoking when they printed this. This is crazy. Just 1 energy and a power for a removal spell. Okay, yeah, that seems good. Enough said about that. All right, Defy, also one of the best green cards in the game. This card's crazy. Just 1 energy and a power counterspell. Yeah, that seems good. It is a little limited about what it can hit, but I think most spells people are playing in the format are counterable by this. So yeah, just 3 seems insane. I think most green decks have been playing 3 this since like the game was ever announced, so yeah, it's just really good. Some more combat tricks. I've got 2 smokescreen. You could consider maybe playing 3, but I think that's a little too excessive because it does cost 2 and a power. I'm already playing 3 on guard, so I don't want to go overboard on combat spells. But yeah, this card's pretty good. It's a reaction and it's good against orange because it's not a damaging spell because they can stop damaging spells. Yeah, just a generically good card. -4 for 2 energies. Pretty decent. Nothing too crazy though. Next, to consult the past, you could probably bump this up to 3 and cut something else potentially if you're running into draw power issues, but I don't really think I've been running into draw issues with Ahri ever since I've been playing her. So yeah, green and blue just kind of draws well enough already. You've got your battlefield, discipline, clock, they all draw, and 2 of this should be fine, but you could consider playing 3 if you're running into that issue. Okay, that's the main deck. Onto runes now, I guess. I'm just playing the 6/6 even split, because pay a decent amount of green and you pay a decent amount of blue. That's about it. Onto sideboard. This entirely depends on the format and what people are playing, so of course take this with a grain of salt. It'll probably change, but 2 retreat and 2 Zanyas for Isa, basically. That's pretty much what these are good into, and maybe some other decks. You definitely play it against like Lux, but nobody's playing Lux, so that doesn't really matter. Yeah, just save your units. We aren't playing that many units in this deck. It's a pretty low, relatively low unit count deck, I would say. It's not like extremely low, but like you're definitely not getting up to the unit count like something like Jinx or Darius would have. Definitely not. Green has always been kind of like a low-ish count deck in terms of units, so you can run into issues with green sometimes when you just don't have any units because your opponent's killing them all, and then you can't play. So you want to avoid that situation, and these cards help you do that. Yeah, they're just pretty good. Very cheap options of protection spells. Pretty good, I'd say. All right, next we've got Third Watcher and the other Ahri, because you are able to switch out your chosen champion between games in a best of 3. You'd play these against ramp because Watcher's really good in ramp, and this is really good to go faster and just win the game faster, which is what you have to do against ramp and dazzling decks, because if the game goes longer, they probably just win. 2 Singularity next, mainly for like decks like this deck, I guess. Things that are like mid-range and don't have too many units. If somebody ever taps out against you and you play this card, you probably just win the game. It's really strong. Into most decks that focus on like board building, and even sometimes decks like Victor, this card is decent into if they're playing certain builds of that deck. Some people are testing like control builds of Victor and Darius, which have like lower unit counts and rely on bigger units most of the time. So yeah, this card is just extremely strong against decks like that. Also against things like Master Yi, this card is really good. Yeah, just anything that relies on units, it's really nice against. It's a very good card, but yeah, just 2 of it, because sideboard limitations. 8 cards is kind of tight. Some cards I'm not playing. I am not playing Windwall currently because I just don't think there's that many good things in the format to counter. Like, Kaisa's been cutting all of their good targets for this. Like, maybe you could play it against the Mirror or Control Darius or something akin to what those decks are trying to do, but there really aren't that many great spells to hit with this right now. And I think your combat tricks and your pump spells and Zanya's and recall, you probably have enough protection against anything you'd want to hit with this card. All right, next, some units. Watchful Sentry, I just think is a little meh in this deck. Like, you kind of want some board presence. This guy doesn't really do that. He's just 1 might. He dies to a light breeze. Yeah, I think you want to stick an actual unit on the board in this deck, and I really don't think you run into draw issues with this deck either, so I don't really see a need to play this. Eager Apprentice, I just don't really think there's any good targets for this deck. Not really, so I wouldn't really play this. I think there's just better options. Lecturing Yordle, maybe a consideration for like heavy control, maybe heavy mid-range metas where card advantage is king, but card advantage isn't really that king right now. It's more about board advantage, I think, and just like points racing and tempo and things like that. I think tempo for now probably matters a little more than card advantage does, and yeah, I just don't really see that much of a reason to play this guy. Like, you have better things right now, I would think, but yeah, it's definitely not a bad card. Potential include for certain metas if format goes a certain way. And Kaisa, I just think this is a little outclassed. Other cards kind of provide value better than this. Blitzcrank and Rex are just better at getting value. Like, if this card had Accelerate, it'd be a lot better. I think you'd play it then, but it's really slow. Yeah. It's just bad. Not the time to be playing this, definitely. All right, that's the deck. As far as like play patterns and general strategy go with this deck, it's basically just a standard mid-range deck. Like, you play Riftbound. That is the entire goal of the deck. You play a normal game of Riftbound, but you win because your cards are a little bit better than your opponents, and you get incremental advantage over and over again by making smart trades and getting value out of cards. Like Blitzcrank, Like Watcher, like Discipline, just any 2-for-1s is really good. Like if you go second and you put a unit down on the board, like this guy, he's a bit hard to deal with, so he's probably gonna get to a battlefield, and then when he does, you can play Blitzcrank, and if your opponent doesn't answer this card, you kind of just win. He's really good, because if you let Blitzcrank stick on the field, he goes back to hand, and then you can do it again and just kill something else and have a loop of just blitzcranking things until your opponent runs out of units. Yeah, against any aggro or mid-range deck that is an extremely solid play, you're obviously going to want to be playing a little bit differently against something like a ramp deck. This doesn't really do anything against ramp. They don't really have anything you can kill, except maybe Volibear is going to have like a Dune Drake, but that's like it. Yeah, but it's basically just a standard mid-range deck. You do a bit of conquering, you do a bit of holding, you just try and play a standard value game to outvalue your opponent and eventually get a small advantage on them to where they won't be able to really contest anymore if you play it right, because as long as you're playing decently and drawing decently, you can kind of just snowball the game from there. A mid-range deck like this does a really good job at capitalizing on mistakes and small advantages being gained. As far as how strong I think this deck is, it's pretty good. It's potentially top 5. It's probably around like number 5, like around that area, give or take a few depending on the format. I could see it doing really well. I could also see it falling off a little bit, especially if it's popular and it gains traction. It's not the hardest thing in the world to counter, I would say, and it being a mid-range deck that just plays standard Riftbound relies a decent amount on player skill and actually navigating to proper win conditions and actually being able to play the game, because you aren't doing anything fancy with this deck. You are just playing Riftbound. So your skill as a player at just playing Riftbound is really going to shine if you pick up this deck and you know the game at least decently. Yeah, I think it's a little flexible as well. There's like different options you can play in the deck, like more Zanyas, more Watchers, things like that. As long as the meta calls for those types of things to be played, you can tailor your deck to kind of beat or at least have a decent matchup into whatever you really want to. I think green and blue overall has pretty decent tools at dealing with most of the stuff in the format. And yeah, overall I expect this deck to do pretty well, at least for now, while the meta's pretty open. If something like Set or Kaisa ends up being like by far the best deck, that wouldn't surprise me, but we do have some tools to try and combat that. So overall, I think this deck is pretty good. It's pretty well situated in the meta right now, and it's probably going to do pretty well. Alright, that's all I have to say today. Take care.